Hey, so this is not the last video, but this is the last era. I can guarantee it's not the last video. This is the last, unless something wonderful happens, and you know. This is the last era of the game, and unless I do something weird like I did last time, we'll probably do 2 videos on this. We got a few little options coming up. A couple that are national based. Austria and Spain have one each, which someone else can like force them to make decisions of the other player's choice. Always feels weird to me, but you know, again, who is the player, you know, right? The players are like gods who can influence the decisions made within other countries. Certainly the players are not the kings, right? Because multiple kings go by. I like to think of them as sort of a national current of conception. This is very different from, you know, that kind of conception fits the old board game, it fits the computer game where, you know, as a player, you're making a lot of decisions. There are events that come up, but you're forced to make the decision on them. But here, these events come up and somebody else can choose to make the decision for you. Kind of weird. And then this rights of ban, which promotes tolerance, but also creates some more chaos on the board. So that's kind of interesting. Anyhow, what happened last time? Other than me squawking about a lot of shit. Let's start looking nation by nation. We'll start with Poland. Poland had a pretty quiet turn. Early in the period, they conquered this, and I think took these. I'm not sure, but over the last period, or not period, over the last quarter of the deck, last couple of videos. It was a pretty quiet turn for them. They didn't have a lot of cubes to use. They're in better shape now. They did some rebuilding, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what happened. They put the advisors down. I'm not sure. Never sure what causes things to change in this. It's like sometimes I'm kind of surprised that they're in position. Turkey. Interesting situation. Turkey was in massive chaos at multiple times. At the beginning of the last round and midway through due to their revolutionary state. However, they got really lucky on die rolls. Nothing to do with, you know, anything that they did. They just got really lucky on the rebellion die rolls. They also had Austria declare war on them fairly late in the turn, but there were reasons it was that late, right? Within a game gamey nature of the situation, there were reasons Austria wanted to delay and try to force Turkey to play cubes. Whenever you're screwing around with shit like that, you're taking a chance that the war might not, you might not be able to play it to completion. And that's what happened. The Austrians marched in, were defeated by the Turks, but had more resources available in terms of cubes to continue the war and would have been able to win it. But Turkey pulled off kind of a surprise pass, which doesn't prevent the war from being prosecuted. Once the war is declared, Austria can keep prosecuting it against a helpless Turk. But the problem is, by generating that pass, they took up one of the slots here, and it ended up that Austria got basically one more turn, and therefore they couldn't have advanced in and captured anything. They could have won a battle. They could have won the war. Instead, what we had, but had they won the war, they would have used an important resource that they have in their hand. They have some mercenaries in their hand. It would have been a luck-based thing. The luck was in their favor. The odds were in their favor if they played that card. I think. I don't know. It might have still been kind of close. And they wouldn't have gained anything from the war. They would have just been able to declare a certain kind of peace. I don't know if they could have done a humiliation or something like that. I don't think so. I think that requires you have something kind of impressive. Humiliation, you have to have their capital, or the loser must have surrendered. How do you surrender? If the player chooses to surrender, yeah. So I could have chosen keep current board state. I would gain nothing. And that is really it. Maybe I could have negotiated a piece or something. As it was, they took the white piece penalty. They both took a prestige hit on it. That helps Poland, who's now in the lead. France has a problem. They have a revolutionary problem. Their happy Protestant realm that had been very comfortable and pleasant has kind of fallen apart as the revolutionary ideology spreads into them. I'm cheating. I'm using extra markers for revolutionary ideology. Technically in the game, you should only be using as many religion markers of any type as are on the board or as come in the game. I view that as really, really disturbing to me. However, it does create some weird gameplay situations. So, it does probably generate more of the infectious faiths than would normally happen, and the revolutionary fervor or whatever it is ends up being one of them and spreading, maybe more heavily than it should. It's kind of hard to tell. We do have both Spain and Turkey as revolutionary countries, so they're promulgating this. Historically, only France really counted as such. France took their turn and they conquered, perhaps cheating a little bit, but they conquered Benin and the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast was Danish. They did 2 declarations of war. The Danish declaration of war they did without any kind of casus belli. Trying to think, should there be one on the board? I don't think so. Someone had a situation. Oh, I know where it was. No, I don't know anything. Okay. No troops conquered. Oh, I know where it is. It's here, isn't it? The English have a casus belli against the Dutch. And they have to remove a counter to do that. Right? I don't know. Maybe not. Fuck it. They would lose a claim to something, which might be one of their discoveries. They would just lose it. They would no longer know where it is, or something. Again, there's this whole weirdness in this game that the countermix limitations is a deliberate choice. I'm not sure the game holds up to the kind of changes that I made, but I view not making those changes, and I view the way the game is designed with the countermix limitations as an abomination. I can deal with the cubes. No, I can't, but I can't change the cubes. They're the core of the game. They're the mechanism that runs the game. And they're pretty close to an abomination, but elsewhere, it's just horrendous. So France won a couple of wars, but at high cost. Everybody's nation is at -3 stability, with the exceptions of Turkey, who's at -2, and Poland, who's at -1. The game has been kind of stuck at that point forever because there simply aren't enough cubes, even with advisors, etc., to keep your nations from collapsing. And even tasks like getting your stability up to like 0 or +1, where I feel it should sort of naturally sit, like it should sort of move in that direction no matter what, right? Well, it doesn't. But the national stability isn't that big a deal. What really is how much unrest you have sitting over your country. Let's hit Spain here. Spain is kind of on the verge of collapse here with lots of unrest, revolting territories. They've probably lost things. They're revolutionary, but they have a lot of like counter-reform Catholic areas still, and other things still in their realm. This would be a lot worse for Spain and Turkey if the shortage and the countermix were allowed, in which case, if the rules to the shortage of the countermix were being followed by me. Because enemies of these countries, when getting one of these symbols, would simply steal their revolutionary ideology and cause them even more problems. So that is a problem that will face Protestants, because the underlying religion to every area that the Protestants tend to be in is Catholic. It will face revolutionaries because they'll fall back revolutionary realms, and it to some extent could affect other religions if you're converting things. Okay. The English had a pretty fucking quiet turn. I don't know what they did. Well, yeah, I kind of do. They had just won a war against Spain and accomplished getting these things. They kind of kept their own realm in good order, but they lost the stuff that they gained. Because again, not enough cubes and stuff to keep that. Do I mind that? Not really, because what the fuck are they doing with possessions on the continent? Hanover? No. Well, I mean, they don't have Hanover. They never got it. No card gave them it or anything. But they have these desires, and they can't accomplish them. They can't keep the stuff that they took in a hard-fought war with Spain. They can't continue colonizing. They just don't have the resources. Nobody has the resources to do what they want. Except Austria, who had the resources. They didn't have the time because other people didn't have the resources, so everybody else ran out the clock on them. Well, Turkey really engineered that. In terms of Austria, yeah, they attacked. They made their realm capable of fighting a war. They launched the war, perhaps a little late. They did a couple of things to screw around with time that caused them problems. But had they not done that, to be fair, the Turks had as many cubes and as big an army as they did. And they really didn't have an advantage. The advantage that they had was this sort of cube advantage, really. And no, actually, it was more a monetary advantage, which has persisted. They're a little richer still after that, but they now have a truce with the Turks because there was a white peace. They've suffered a little bit of unrest. Some of their vassals are kind of falling apart away from them. The Turks also have lost some territory here, but for the most part, they actually recovered quite well from the turn. Now we're going into a period that time-wise should encompass the reality of the Napoleonic Wars, and we're expecting this scoring card to show up here. It might have showed up in the last deck. It could have been triggered early. The last deck seems to have... So this deck covers from basically all the 19th century stuff. So the entirety, if my numbers and calculations are right, and they're consistent throughout, who knows, time might be bent. There's so much screwing around with any kind of conception of what's actually happening in this game. So far, I haven't seen anything that makes the Napoleonic Wars appear to occur anything like how they historically did. But then again, 7 Years' War was basically a fight between Austria to conquer Saxony, and nothing else was involved. There were no fights anywhere else. Austria just walked in and took Saxony. That's all that happened off the card that triggered that. So, the Napoleonic Wars probably... all the sweeping back and forth gets represented by like an attack into the Rhineland or something along those lines. this war, it could have been huge in any reality that it represents. I have no idea what it represented. It was a move into here, a fight, and a fallback. It could have been huge campaigns with Constantinople besieged and the Turks coming back and flooding them back. Who knows? Who knows? Because the game abstracts away all the military aspects. If it represents anything to do with the history, there is no way that you get the invasion of Russia from France. No way. Well, who knows? Maybe these 4 cards hold something. Maybe they hold something magic that gives, you know, France 10 extra cubes or something like that in their military area. Even that wouldn't do it because they just recover, you know, with most of them. They would not pursue the Napoleonic Wars with them. And it's just fucked. Plus, there's no Russia in the game. So, there you go. But there's a Poland in the game, and so far we haven't seen anything that would allow that Poland, if you play the Grand Campaign with its historical setup, to disintegrate. Yep. Now, I would have allowed it to disintegrate as a player realm, but which is not allowed into the rules, but I would allow it to happen because I'm playing solo. Who cares about player elimination? And I'll make up rules to fix that. But yeah, there's just nothing, there's no partition of Poland. That's a pretty big thing to leave out. At least none showed up in this scenario. It may be because Poland's in the game that they didn't put it in there. There may be an event in the Russian side of things, or even a B-side event or whatever, that handles the partition of Poland, and you just don't play with it if you have Poland in it, supposedly, or something. I don't know. So yeah, we'll play this out. I'm frustrated and disappointed so far with this thing's capability to show historical reality. It may be that it's the expanded game, that, you know, the abstraction of the whole Napoleonic Wars to the east might not be quite as bad from my point of view if, you know, if you're only playing with this side of the board. But yeah, to a large extent, it's just not, it's not telling the story. And it's not that, oh, history's diverged. I'm fine with that. It's that it can't tell the historical story. It cannot possibly tell it. And at least not in the detail I want, which is to say, look, you can't represent the invasion of Russia by moving into the Rhineland. That just, I don't accept that. You're warping, the game warps time with that stupid track over there, and the game is warping space as far as I can tell as well. All this stuff has been abstracted away. You start abstracting things like time and space away, and I no longer feel like I'm playing a simulation of any kind, right? I'm playing something, and you know, that could just be my mindset. Some people can handle maybe a warping of time and space as long as other factors are right, like, you know, the important thing that all governments consider, which is how many cubes do I have, right? You know, here we are at what may be the most complex part of the game, which is the prefiguring what you're going to do, and it's on the last turn of the game. So the decisions, I don't know, maybe they're not as important as before, but they're clearer, right? So I look at the Poles, they only have 2 of these cards, so this is all they have to worry about. House of Vasa, if I want to work towards it, well, I got to worry about these, but I don't know. These things are really hard for me to keep track of for the same reason that this shit is. Just because it's not in my player's hand, you know? This is a major move against the Swedish territories. So 4 more provinces in Svealand, Gotland, yeah, there's one there, Skane, oh, Gotland and Skane, which is the one area, or Finland. This is not easy. These don't count. So there's basically 1 extra province I have to pretty much take all of Sweden over and either conquer it. Well, I don't have to take these. So I have to take everything in Sweden except its capital, which is Stockholm, in order to win this. That's a pretty hefty goal. What is my situation? I don't have any military cubes worth talking about. I think it's out of reach. So then the situation becomes, how do I pad my points? See about the Napoleonic Wars. If I can win against, say, Austria, which is actually a viable place that I could take from. There are a couple of locations of some importance there between Brandenburg and Austria itself. I don't think there's anything else that I can take that is going to help me in the Napoleonic Wars. I'm sitting on some nice stuff. I could pad that. That would probably be even better because, again, I have only one military cube. Okay. An important thing to consider on this turn, because it's the last turn, and of course, you know, artificial barriers. Last turn of the game, edge of the map, stuff like that always creates some sort of hard to believe situations in games, or often does. I'm not going to say always, because there's somewhere it's absolutely, you know, reasonable. It's hard to figure them out, but you know, like, I find it in tactical games quite often. I'm like, well, the armies didn't really spend enough of their effort. They would stick around another day. They'd fight the battle or not. You know, they'd make their decision there. Or the terrain objectives in the tactical battle don't matter. What matters is really the operational impact of those terrain objectives. So if you could figure out a way to get around them, like at Gettysburg, you don't have to fight at Gettysburg if you're playing a more operational game, or, you know, certainly in a strategic one. But so there's sort of this presentation of, yeah, you've got these goals, but those goals don't really fit what the commanders were thinking, right? Unless they got fixated and got tunnel vision in some sort of sense. And likewise with strategic games, when there's an end point, it screws things up. But I gotta say, when there's automatic victory conditions, that can screw things up in a different sort of direction as well. So, you know, in the same sort of, yeah, unless those victory conditions indicate collapse of your enemy, it's really hard to accept. Which is one reason why elimination games kind of work, in my view. Anyway, I'm just saying, because of the limitation, I don't know if I got it out, there's no reason, or almost no reason, to buy advisors at this point. So that's going to impact my card decisions, right? What am I going to want to do? What am I going to want to fix? What things are important to me? Religion might be important. It might cause some revolts, etc. But this is the last turn I have to survive through that. So cards which are going to help me, you know, administrative is looking very valuable right now towards securing my realm and my position at the lead of the pack. Here are 3 cards. Went with 2 admins. Didn't get what I really wanted, which was like an excellent year or whatever, but okay. And then went for a diplomacy. And this is kind of what I was aiming for, a royal marriage. I can drop this in one of the victory zones and get, you know, some points off of it. Maybe. I don't know. Where are the victory zones? Maybe over in North Italy. Someplace where Poland has absolutely no interest, right? Of course, Russia took Corfu, but... or had it at the beginning of the war period. So I'm going to keep these 2. There's no question. It's $4. The cost in money is probably low, but it's perhaps important. The question is, what are ideas worth? Now, to parse this out, my biggest question is, What are the victory conditions? What is the end of the game victory conditions? I don't see anything that gives me victory conditions for an idea. But ideas themselves generate prestige, so it's got some possibility there. Research one at the cost of 2 of the matching type. So it's going to give me a cost of 1 less. I can also get a bonus if it's one that nobody's got. So like mercantilism would be an interesting choice, which gives me an extra point. That might be worth it. However, it requires a stability of 0 or more. Does stability count in the victory conditions? It should. This should be a huge mess of everything, you know. What it should be doing is evaluating your current position in the game to make up for the fact that there's an end of game trigger. It doesn't look like it does that completely. Twice the current stability. So getting stability up would be worthwhile. What's that cost? And this is where it really starts feeling like a Euro, because I'm calculating the victory points and you know, facing them so high. Now, maybe if victory points were done right in the original game, that would make sense. But there's such a mess that when you just play the last turn, you just play it for the fuck of it. Is it worth me putting this much effort in to figure this out? I don't know. So what am I looking at here? The stability cost would be 5 minus 1 would cost me 4 to negate a couple of to get me a couple of points. And you can do this kind of min-maxing all across the board for this game, right? I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play it by ear, because it's ridiculous to do this kind of calculation over this broad a manifold of space. I'm going to say this isn't worth it. I don't think I can afford it and the stability cost together. I grab those cards, I move it on, and I say that's good enough. But, oh boy, I could see someone at the end of the game taking 2 or 3 hours calculating out what the best route there is for their particular player faction, you know, for their particular position, how they can best maximize their victory points or maximize their position on the victory point track. Those are 2 different types of victory, by the way, right? Like, okay, look, the guy who comes out in the lead wins the game, right? Cool, you know, but if you're looking at first place, obviously you're maximizing your position on the track in comparison to the other players, right? If you just want to say, did I win the game overall? You maximize your current position on that. Now, but if you're looking at a lower position, what do you evaluate things that are less than first place at, right? So would being within a few points of first place, but in third place, be better than being significantly behind first place, but in second place? These are the kind of things that, you know, you just go on your feeling, your intuition, and emotions in the situation. But that kind of min-maxing could be important. You know, some people might take it more importantly one way or the other. They might be like, well, yeah, I was only 2 points behind the first place player. Yeah, but you were in 4th place, man. Everybody clustered together, you know. But then you say, well, yeah, but I was in the running. You know, I mean, we were all in the running. 4 of us were in the running. It was a close game. It was great. It was tight. You know, we were able to, it came down to maybe a die roll or 2 at the end. And for some people, that may be more important than, well, I placed second, but the leader just ran away, because basically those of us in, you know, lower positions were battling it out among each other for second place instead of trying to bring the whole pack up. All kinds of philosophy that you can apply to that, and psychology for that matter, that, I don't know. I don't know. I've certainly run into players who take very, very different views of that. I don't mind that they have a different view. I mind when they try to impose their different view. I'll give you an example which I've given before. I was playing a game, I don't remember what it may have been. I don't know. I don't know what it was. It may have been Russian Civil War. But I was playing, no, it was Manifest Destiny. It was the same group of people. I was playing a game, and one of the guys was so unhappy that someone took a choice that improved their position in the game, but impacted who won the game on the last turn or whatever. And I mean, in his disfavor, And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Obviously, you should be able to chase your own goals, right? I can understand not wanting absolute, pure, dyed-in-the-wool kingmaking happening. Like, well, you screwed me, although honestly, I'm in favor of that shit. You screwed me over earlier in the game, I'm going to make sure you don't win. I think that's a perfectly valid thing. If you manage to piss off other players, if you play them to the extent that they're willing to take that kind of action against you, well, I think you deserve it. You've made enough bad will that someone else should be able to take advantage of the fact that your reprobate behavior, in their eyes at least, has caused them to be willing to sacrifice even their own position to hurt you. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about somebody who's looking at, can I improve my total score? Or can I improve my position? Oh, it might affect who wins the game. Yeah, well, it might affect who wins the game by you not following your own best interests too, right? I can make an argument in the other direction. It's just as much. I'm not religious about it, right? And all that chattering time, now I hear that there's no more fighting happening downstairs. I set myself in raid to go up the Doom Tower thing. I don't have a lot of real. I don't know what I was even going to say, but I have to go down and check. I think it means I failed at something and I have to fix it. But in all that chattering time, I could have probably gotten 2 more players done. I wouldn't have spent as much time chattering about the poll. The way I chattered about the poll decisions, I wouldn't be spending that much on everybody else because we kind of understand the last turn implications, right? Turns out even worse than that. I successfully completed the entire route up. I forgot the battles are taking shorter now. I've set up a better team. And I'm really not in condition to keep going. So we're going to break here. I don't know. Maybe it for the night. But I got 1 player chosen. Slowly push forward. There's something in the game that I just realized it's not something that's wrong with the game or anything like that. But it's difficult to get your head around, sort of. So when you're drawing these cards, you're kind of thinking, I'm trying to get these capabilities, right? Now, to some extent, they might be. You might end up getting advisors off of them that in the future you will have more power. But the truth of the matter is, for the most part, your cubes are your real resource. So like when you're looking at drawing these, you're wanting to draw into your big cube piles. Now, that may seem obvious to anyone, but when I'm operating, I'm just sort of thinking, well, what do I want to do or whatever. But here on this last turn, I know I'm not going to get advisors that are going to be useful to me. None of them are going to matter. They don't count even for victory points to, try to show what kind of condition my kingdom's going to be in or whatever. In the future, all they really are at this point, in their most pure form, is, well, what can I get with my cubes? What can I already do, and what do I want to do? And that's really hard. So it's like there's almost no chance that I'd pull a diplomatic one here. There's some definite value, I think, to me getting administrative. It's hard to judge that a military one's going to be terribly useful to me. I don't see any military. I swapped out the Danube for the Black Sea. Again, it's not going to make a damn bit of difference, but it's possible that like Poland could go to war with me. The thing I wanted most on my first card, which is a development card, because that allows me to change religions and maybe keep some of the chaos down, right? So that I can, you know, shift some of this stuff from being at risk, as it were. So I think my next two cards are going to be military, even though it's very hard for me to see a use for military. One of the things is none of these cards sort of fuel your cube supply, right? You might get cubes off the events, but these cards are never going to fuel your cube supply. And I now have easily, between what I've got in my hand, more than I can possibly spend on those. So I'm going to draw two military and see what I get. You know, well, definitely not keeping this. Second logistics master, it allows you to move two stacks, basically. Worth it or not worth it? Gives me a military leader with 2 cannon. I have no military leader. I think it's worth the $4 to take the extra $2 to take this card. I'm not absolutely sure. Do I have a ruler? Because I would lose like victory points without a ruler. You know, I think money may be more important. I'm really short on cash. I don't know if loans cost. Yeah, loans cost 1 per. So I'd ideally like to be able to close those all out by the end of the game. French, sort of shifted to secure the Low Countries. If I'm going to go for a military operation, that's what I would choose. But I have bases in North America. I have a lot of stuff that maybe I could do. I don't know if I can do this. 3A, 3E. 3A is the Low Countries. 3E might be the one I just formed here. The Guinean coast. Yeah, it is. So I would actually be able to push into the Far East. That's 2 or more provinces. My hope had been to get, I'm not going to have a fleet big enough to get me out there. I just don't have the power to project my way out here. So I'll leave that alone. What about the North American, though? That's probably too hard because most of it's fallen already. 2 or more, Mississippi, Canada, Hudson Bay, Antilles, or Guyana. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that. All my draws were kind of based on an exploration type idea with, hey, if I could get the naval thing, that would be cool. I think I'm just going to throw all my cards out that I drew. None of them look useful. This is a very different situation in the game, you know, than every other turn in the game, right? Because I would be looking at, hey, you know, what can I fill here as I got later in the game? Earlier I was thinking, what do I want to do? But I just don't have very many cubes. I'm not going to be able to do much anyway. And harping on that sort of artificial boundaries thing, it's changed the whole nature of the game, right? And part of that's because this does not reflect everything that you want to do at one game turn going to the other. You know, like this is unrest, for example, doesn't look like it costs you. Now, of course, unrest happening could generate a risk before you get to the scoring where you lose control of an area. Into the situation where they want to spread the revolution, I guess. I don't know. So I drew a lot of administrative cards. Now this is a little weird. I don't have a hell of a lot of administrative cubes. And I already got a couple of cards that would help me, like increased stability and exceptional year. So I may not even keep any of these. although they're good ones, like an exceptional year, but I got one of those already. And I don't have enough cubes. I'd have to move cubes to use that. Oh, I fucked up, didn't I? I should have been going for exploration stuff, although this is the limiting factor on my exploration capability somehow. That's my own screw up. I had 2 cubes there. I chose to drop to 1, but now I'm seeing, wow, I'd really like to make it to La Plata. That would get me the Spanish Main. Italian ambition, it's the only other one I can do. I can't, but it's the only other one that's even legitimate for me, I think. I've got things, like Form Spain and stuff, but it's just not going to happen. Not with low diplomatic. Getting ideas probably isn't going to help me from what I can see. Commercial growth, that's going to be worth points. There's no question. I'll get... Oh, the cost is actually... So this is weird. Player who has all their... At the end, yeah, that's the end of game thing. Equal to current tax income, which I think already gets rid of occupied territories. I'm not sure. But if I'm judging my tax, these cubes are canceling it out. And then, so I have to pay double, basically, for anything occupied. So I'm really going to want to reconquer my areas at the end of this. Yeah, I just don't think I'm going to have the effort involved to do this. Exceptional year could get rid of an unrest, but again, I only have so many cubes. So I'll throw that out and go over to the English. But the English have available, hey, continental possessions just got fucking screwed. I'm probably looking at colonial ambitions. The fact that this is 2B and 2D, I think I have 2B. I don't know what it was, but these are the only ones that are unselected. I'll take the East India Company because that kind of heads in the direction I'm going. Well, I have a lot of military cubes. Could I go to war with the Dutch? Yeah. The French we're considering it, but they don't have the cubes for it. But I actually do have a lot of military cubes. I have a lot, I could do a lot of exploration, but I can't colonize very quickly. Mediterranean authority would be 2 or more of Gibraltar, Baleares, Malta, Crete, or Cyprus. The problem is I don't have any claims to force a war into those areas. Whereas continental possessions, I do actually have the claims to force that war. So that's what I'm going to go with there. I haven't picked my cards, though. English cards probably aren't that big a deal because I just don't have a lot of money. And paying $2 per may cause me a lot of issues. I currently have a new alliance and a revolutionary ideal, which would give me a king or a general if I need one. I drew one of these, and I got harbor refugees, which could be useful if I wanted to expand, because I could get the remaining cubes to do a placement for free off that. I think that may be worth picking up. I don't know. This is impossible, right? I need 4 or more, and it's got to be Africa and so Southeast Atlantic is here. So yeah, the African coast. So an invasion here would get me towards it. An invasion here would get me towards it. But I'm just not going to succeed. It's possible. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. I just don't. And then I already have a new alliance, and I drew 2 more. I was hoping for a subjugation, because I have a couple of alliances here in areas that would count as continental possessions if I could vassalize them. Austrians, well, I can't take Iron Crown of Italy because I don't have this yet, so I can't even pick it. Burgundian inheritance I could take, Flanders and Wallonia or Netherlands. We may see everybody try to divide up the powerful Dutch kingdom that's formed, right? Or power there. 5 or more provinces. I could do that with enough military power. And I do have 1A already, so that's up in the air and possible. Defend the empire is also possible. Austrian Galicia requires 3B. I think I've already gotten that one. That would be a war with Poland. It doesn't sound like a great idea. Although, and Poland is our opponent. There are interesting things in Polish territory that I could grab that are of interest. Owner vassalized form of Wikipedia, Mazovia and Malopolska and Red Ruthenia. Is this Wikipedia? Yeah. The problem is I'm kind of far from most of it. Sure, I can cut through Hungary and get in there. I'm not locked in until after I pick my cards. But neither of these is plausible for me, really. Right? I need one more Adriatic port. I should be able to get that, actually. Dominate the Balkans is definitely out there. Defend the empire is still perhaps possible. Sorry. I had to scratch my nose with the hand that's holding the camera. Brescia, I've lost. That was the one I maybe had. Franche-Comté is allied to the Spaniards. It would call them in. I don't see any real advantage to that. Namur, Luxembourg, or Holstein. Luxembourg's here. Namur is Spanish held. And Holstein is held by the Danes. That's too many different people I have to attack. If there had been a couple of these under the Dutch, maybe that would convince me to go with the Burgundian inheritance as well. But Adriatic ports I think I can do, and then the question is between these two. I guess I'll think and draw and come to my conclusion. First draw got me a subjugate, which is exactly what I want, because that can get me... that can get me nothing. No, that can get me Rome. I can go from alliance to vassal on Rome, which gets me an Adriatic port. Perfect, right? So I definitely want that. Then I went to military thinking, well, if I'm going to go to war with Poland, I might want one. I got a forced march. That might be useful for its actual action. It does give me a possible ruler, more importantly, perhaps a military leader. So then I drew for admin, and I got something that, again, that I'm not going to use for its event, but I might use for the ruler or the general. So I'm going to throw the forced march away. I have a decent amount of money, but no reason to waste it. And so I'm buying 2 of the cards for $4. I'll throw the forced march away. I can't think of... There are times when it's really necessary, like if I was fighting a 2-front war or something like that. Well, now, wait a minute. This guy could go 1, 2... geez. Now I'm thinking about buying that as well, because I have a shitload of cash. All right, I'll buy that card as well. That's enough for this little installation of time here. My sleep schedule is so fucked up in so many ways. Like, I tried to sleep in the middle of the night. It didn't happen. Sometimes it was happening. I'm not feeling well, so I would think I would be able to sleep when I'm feeling tired and whatnot. But I end up just, snoozing for the length of a video that I have on or whatever, and not really sleeping during it. And then waking up, and it really sucks because, I'm like, well, it's kind of cold out, like 50 degrees. I know it's going to get up into the 70s today. And so I think, well, I'd rather go out in shorts at a later hour, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to sleep. And then I've got other shit as well, like... someone that is trying to hire me. But a former coworker of mine who is trying to probably get their hiring bonus off me or whatever. But she wants me to call her, and no time was set or anything like that. And I'm like, I spent yesterday until like 11 a.m. waiting on it. I was planning on going shopping today, but I still feel like fucking shit. Uh, and even though I'm running out of food, and really should do it because today's Wednesday. It's possible I could go shopping tomorrow. It's Thursday. Of course, that might fuck up my sleep schedule for Friday, which is absolutely vital to me because that's the one day a week that I do anything. Anyway, I just, everything in my life is just this fucking mess. And wait a minute. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I think Austria's goal here is going to be a war with Poland. It's kind of valuable because they're the two countries in the lead. Well, Poland's in the lead. Austria is close behind. Poland is sitting on... This doesn't count for the Napoleonic Wars event. It would count if the Austrians can take it. This does, though. So they're sitting on kind of an equivalent situation to how Austria is in terms of victory point areas. They both... whatever this is Saxony. Yeah, Saxony and Prussia are of importance here. So, we want to focus on those. Well, we each have what we want, but Poland has a few points on us. They have higher stability. If we can rock them back a little bit, they have a little bit more unrest than we do. They have less military capability right now. I think we got a shot. I don't know. It's hard for me to judge these things, even after this much play, as to what will work and what won't. Funny, I'm up here. It's Friday morning, about 6 to 7 a.m. I guess. Looks like a pretty day. I got to get back to sleep. I thought I'd come up here and play. I've got something in Raid going on that I just that I can leave on. Well, that I can run up and down between turns. But I'm just feeling too damn tired and sick. On the bright side, I did get, it sucks. I'm right at the ending, and I can't seem to push forward and get that final oomph, but some of it is me being sick. Some of it is like yesterday, I did go shopping, and then I sat outside in the sun and had a beer, which was a real nice thing. Basically, I spent my entire day parked in front of my computer playing Raid or sleeping, so it was kind of nice to do things, and I don't know what's going to give way. Something's got to. I can't live this way. All right, I'm trying to push myself to get up here. I've gotten so damn used to just sitting and watching videos, recovering on Saturday, whatever. This is Sunday. I think it's still morning. There's a bit of a danger. A former coworker of mine is trying to hire me, and so I may end up having to go back to work or something somewhere. Oh, I don't know. I had mentioned this on a previous video, and we just had a discussion, and she's like, yeah, no, you're the person I want for this. So, like, okay. So we're starting with the polls. I don't know what the hell they're trying to do. I usually like to get at least one round of cards in after I do the setup of what the things are. Obviously, Break the Rust isn't going to happen, but so I'm kind of at a loss. I don't think I'm really going for House of Vasa either. I think it's just, hey, I have to pick a couple of these. So, wonder what's up with the Austrians here. They should have picked one of these. Can't do the Iron Crown. Can't do Dominate the Balkans. I may have fired one off. I'll give them this one, even if I did just solve one, which I don't think is the case. No, I've got Holy League on top there. This is the last time I have to do any of this stuff. This is the last round of the game. And I don't think I'm going to play it again real soon. It's just there's too many things, you know, too many other games that I feel like I have to do something with, you know. Just staring at one right there, the green fields beyond, you know. Oh, and I got Crimean War kicking around here too. You know, these are, and I bumped some stuff. These are things that I've wanted for a long time, and I don't know. Anyway, let's try to figure out what the Poles are going to do. I noticed I have some others. I have Austrian Galicia here, which requires 3B. I think I'll take that. On the chance that the Poles attack me, which they actually might, I think that makes sense. I don't know. I didn't see all of these there. 3B. Yeah, apparently I have that one already. So confusing. Okay. Apparently I have 3B already. So I can put this into play. What the fuck that is? I don't know. For a fact what Poland would be doing if this wasn't the last turn. They have this development card. They'd be fixing their religious issue. I'm in the lead. It might be the best choice. Am I likely to defeat the Austrian forces? I've got a bigger army right now. My economy is in the crapper just like Austria's is. Do I? I do not have one. I don't like using substitutions as wherever possible. It might still be the best move. So something I would not have done under other circumstances, but there is a power struggle coming up in the Napoleonic Wars. I played a royal marriage, got myself a marriage down here in Italy. That's not a very useful marriage for me, but right now, being involved in the power struggle, getting an extra point from that, seems like kind of the best thing I can do. So I threw one in. I don't want to throw one in to the papacy. I married the Pope. They have families. Where there's an alliance by the Austrians, because that alliance could be converted into, and similarly, there's an alliance here with Ferrara. I think this marriage is down here on Florence, and I think the alliance is over here on Mantua. It's hard to tell. Somebody pointed out, hey, the board looks pretty crowded. You know, the board in the original board game also was crowded, but it was in a different sort of way. It was basically the control markers were all over the place, and others, there just wasn't a lot of room for the pieces. Here, though, pieces have to be on specific locations within an area. There's a lot of room in each area, but there's not a lot of room on each province, which is basically the shields, and some of them are rather tightly packed, like in North Italy. It's in a troublesome position. Their country's in a lot of disarray. They don't have a lot they can do about it, and they've lost that lead, right? They're in third place now. They've lost that lead that felt like it would be padding for any issues they have. I have these two subjugates. I want to take advantage of them. I can get control of the Barbary coast, which is worth a decent amount of points, if I do things right. I need an alliance. To do an alliance, I'm going to spend a cube to start getting the cubes necessary for this. I need a total of 3 cubes there, not for the alliance, but for the eventual vassalization. So I'll spend $6 to grab 2 more. This may not be the optimal point score that I can get, but I got to do what I can. You know, I don't want to overanalyze everything. I'm doing the bounce up and down, running fights in raid right now, so that kind of disrupts my thinking. Oh, was there one of these? So I looked at these for One of these might be important. This one in particular. I already have tolerance. No. This is good for revolutionary people. Metternich system, I could fuck around with Austria. I mean, yeah, it might be good, but it doesn't look like it does any harm for them. Constitution of Cadiz, that can fuck around with Spain. I actually don't even care about screwing with Spain at all. They're so far behind that it's just not an issue. And the last the last half of the player groups, they've kind of fallen far behind. Spain is in the lead out of them. France, you know, this is a good sized chunk, and then England, England's pretty close to France. Okay. It's where they are. They don't have many cubes. They don't have much they can do. I'm going to spend the last of this development card, right? You know, I don't know which way I want to do this. This exhausts 2 uses developing a province, so I can't do that. Ah! Integrate area. Aha. So, this would be a way of getting new core provinces. That's a mechanism in the game. So that you don't have to follow just the historical cores. You can add cores elsewhere. Again, I am... So many of the things that have countermix limitations, I just have a real problem with. And I have a real problem with when you develop an area as a core area, it doesn't feel to me like that should limit the amount of claims and casus belli that you have. I can understand that claims and casus belli have a relationship with each other. Core feels, I mean, again, I can make an argument for it, but I just have this feeling that as a country expands, if you, over this period of time, it's able to integrate regions and make them core to its country and can still expand further, make further claims on places. And it just doesn't feel reasonable to me that you'd be limited by that. The cubes, they're a mechanism in the game that I feel like I don't understand what it is, so it's very hard for me, you know. Obviously, look, the number of cubes you have on the board is a physical limitation. It might make some sense, but some of these others, I feel like I do have enough of a grip on what they mean. They mean something. Cubes in your reserve doesn't mean anything to me, right? Like, I just don't understand what it is well enough to be able to, because the idea that, like, influence that you have with other nations would reduce your effectiveness at home, is that real? You know? And likewise, setting up these institutions, which is really what I see these face-up cards as, does that really reduce your influence at home, your power at home? To me, these are almost like, you know, consider the Pentagon. Does the very existence of the Pentagon as this powerful military institution, and, you know, does this fit one of the cards? No. But does that really limit the U.S. government from doing other things? Sure, there's a huge cost to the Pentagon. There's no question about that. But that should be like a drain of money or whatever, right? You know, I just don't know. It could be, though, that some of your choices are constrained by the existence of big projects that are underway. And again, without really understanding, like, cubes don't really represent anything. They're just these markers. Why are they limited, you know, when they're serving so many different roles? It's just really hard for me to get a grasp on that. I don't get it, but I also don't get it well enough to be able to argue against it terribly well, right? Like, They're like magic or something, you know? They just don't make sense to me. But when I look at claims in conjunction with casus belli and with core areas, all of these are concrete, you know, these are ideas that I have a concrete understanding of. And so that's hard. Anyway, what the fuck was I gonna do? I was thinking I would change a religious area. Another option I have is I could get rid of some of my unrest. Is diplomacy going to do me a damn thing? It's not. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the religion. I'm going to get rid of one of these revolutionary areas. I hate this. I'll get rid of this one. Is there a reason? Well, at least I know this is a core area and it will not... those won't permanently disappear. However, that may actually be a bad idea. Like something permanently disappearing might be better at this step in the game than something that is only, you know, that is under rebellion. So to some extent, maybe I'm doing things wrong and I should be seeking out. But then again, I don't know that any of it matters, right? You know, I'm going to be rolling rebel dice up there no matter what, unless I cure the unrest. So, I don't know. All right, that moves this boat on, and I get to go back downstairs. I really don't like this bouncing up and down. I just went up a level in raid, which means I got a whole lot more energy than I already thought I did. I had a ton of energy yesterday. Like 1,000 points that I wasn't counting, that is over and above the normal. This time I just got like another 150 or so. But there's just a ton of it stored up for me, and I don't really need it, but I need to pay attention and expend it. And each of the battles I do is kind of in that annoying point, where it's a little bit less time than I spend up here making a decision. Is going to try to achieve one of their goals. They're going to blow a navigation activity. I had to get rid of this. I left it there with the cube on it. And how am I going to get there is the question. Do I want to be here in the Atlantic, not in this side of things? I don't think I particularly do. On the other hand, I don't know that I need all these boats. Oh, let's do this. 1, 2 down here. And we get, we get to roll the exploration die. We get a 1. A 1 gets us Bahia or Punmunsa. Unfortunately for us, we don't care about either of those. We were looking for a La Plata. This is goofy. Like many things in this game. But I end up with a claim to one of these. Let's take a claim there. I'm not going to be able to colonize it. Well, I could, but I'm not going to want to because I got other things I want to do. I really don't like... So, why did the Spanish Main happen in the territories it did? Because those are the territories that were convenient for Spain to land at, right? This isn't something like conquer the Mexicans, you know, which is a different thing, conquering one of the big empires. That's a totally different thing. As a goal, I can see why that's separate. Although, if you don't get lucky with that, you don't find them. But by just, you know, basing it on what die roll I get, what this really should be is own 3 or more of stuff in the New World. Doesn't really matter where it is. Or you could specify, you know, basically stuff adjacent to one of these sea zones. That would make sense, because that would direct you to do your exploration in the right area. But what doesn't make sense is that it's particular places that they did historically colonize because they found them, right? If I had found La Plata, or if I had found Brazil, which is essentially what I'm there, Bahia, and the Portuguese hadn't, okay, look, The line of demarcation was created because the Portuguese found Brazil, right? Where it sliced and gave certain areas to the Portuguese. This is kind of fitting the Treaty of Tordesillas, but if the Portuguese don't find it and claim it and take it, don't you think somebody else would? You know, I don't know. Again, it's nitpicking, but the game, it's not as easy to change as it would be with the old game. With the old game, I could just pencil in some different instructions in an event or in the victory points or something if I wanted to scale and change things. Here, I've got a card that has things written on it. I would have to actually, you know, either make a new card or make some kind of cover card for it or something to make up for that. I could make a whole list of, like, you know, my own personal, like, errata notes that would play for it. But, you know, the game doesn't need them. They did a good job. They don't have corrections to these. They're doing what the designers intended. I just kind of don't agree that it's a great idea to force the Spaniards, you know, hey, did you get lucky? Did you find the places that you historically found so you could settle in them? I'm working with the English. I noticed something horrible. Should be a truce here. That piece was resolved. Okay. Now we go over to the English, who, you know, they're not going to win the game, right? They probably are not going to end up any better than last place, but might be able to squeeze out a 5th place finish, especially if France gets in trouble. I don't have a lot of power for colonizing anything. Is there a place I can colonize? Maybe, maybe not. Nope. Okay. I might be able to explore, but it feels, you know, I'm not going to get this. Continental possessions is the goal that I've had for quite some time. Can I fight the Dutch? Well, here's the problem with the fucking Dutch. Is they've got 1, 2, 3 ships here, none here. I could do a military move my ships over into the English Channel and build that up a lot and try to do a war with the Dutch. I probably would do okay in it. I might be able to conquer them all. It's not part of the Napoleonic Wars, strangely enough. You know, the key locations there are largely the big players. Prussia is kind of weird. So you have both Brandenburg and Prussia. Not sure. Northern Italy definitely makes sense. Kind of. Oh, Egypt's in there. Okay. Yeah. Little. No, can't think of anything. So the one thing though is, like, you know, if India hadn't been resolved at this point, or North America hadn't really been resolved, something might have happened in one of those. Of course, there's already the problem of the Louisiana Purchase and all that. So, you know, maybe it's best just to say, hey, let's not call it a world war. It certainly might have been one. Anyway. I don't know what the fuck to do with the English. I have this. I could siege that. That probably is a good idea. The other thing that I had that's interesting is this new alliance card, which could spend a whole bunch of monarch power and essentially stick myself in as an ally in one of these areas that is important. Yeah, what's important? Prussia is a possibility, because they have reinvigorated themselves into there. North Italy is, of course, a possibility. Replace us? No. Yeah, no. I think multiple people are allowed to have an alliance. Now, this is where, if not, I fucked up, right? Because, no, that was a marriage. Multiple people are definitely allowed to have a marriage. Yeah, I don't remember if multiple people are allowed to have an alliance. Time to look it up. I remember seeing something. I'm guessing 32 is going to tell me. An NPR can only be allied to one PR. Yeah. Now, there's rules about, like, if two people are allied, you know, if you're allied to two people, the order of the casus belli and everything, which kind of confused me, but that's because players can make alliances with one another or with bots, which is different. Do I want to thrust myself into an alliance for all those points? It's only worth a victory point to do that, which seems pretty low. However, I've got to be at peace to do it also. Which, I mean, 4 cubes for one little point thing doesn't seem like much, but what am I going to do with all these diplomatic cubes? I don't have any other real options. All right. So, and I do have an alliance available. So yeah, let's do this. Where do I want my alliance? I believe it's allowed to replace an alliance, right? Then if you now have the most, yeah, you gain the alliance. It boots the other person when you gain something. So Austria is in the lead. Austria has an alliance with Rome. That's one that I'd like to take away from them. So that's what I'll do. So there's my 4 cubes. I got to pay $2, but essentially I take the Roman alliance away from them. And hey, they're Protestant anyway, right? Austria is sitting on a subjugate card, and those things are pretty rare. Is there something I can use with it? Probably not to get this. This is kind of a, I'm just screwed. I screwed something up. When I did that alliance thing, this should have happened as well, which allows me to have the alliance actually, or to create it. I have the subjugate card. One thing I could do is I could just take Brandenburg. Have to put some cubes down. That cost me 1 and some cash, sure. But the real question is, can I hit the Adriatic ports? The goal there had been I was going to subjugate Rome, and I just got screwed out of that. I have an alliance with Mantua, but not with Venice. I mean, I could vassalize Mantua, but I think that's worth less. So, since I have to do this before I go to any war, and I might be going to war, I'm going to drop the 3 cubes. Is it 3? Do I need 4? 3 cubes into Brandenburg. That's going to cost me $6. Of course, I'm cheating. I can't do that. Shit. I don't have the diplomats. They allow me to put 3 in each area per influence action. That means I'm going to have to do another influence action to get more cubes into play. Fuck. I'll take my $3 back. I don't know what I'm going to do with my diplomatic cubes other than this anyway. You could argue that, you know, maybe I should be using them instead of money. But I hate using cubes. I can always shift them and stuff. I have the subjugate I'm doing. So let's start working this into play. Grabbing 3 more provinces, that's going to be worth a lot. First of all, the Napoleonic Wars bonus. Secondly, end of game victory points for additional things. Just, it's a really good combination to turn a vassal into my own territory. I'm stopping there because mainly I don't like this bouncing up and down, and I don't want to be doing this. I really don't. I'm so hooked on like being very, very much less active than even playing a board game is. I'm on Monday. At the pace I'm going, I'm going to be in real trouble. I've got jury duty in a week, And I want to get this done by then, but I'm having real trouble. It's really just you know, when you get used to playing a game more, when you get in the habit of doing it, it's just easier to just pop up and do it. And I'm not in that state. For the polls. All right, I'm looking at them again. These dip cubes are pretty damn useless for me. I don't have any dip cards that I can play on them. I have the spy network. I could fire something nasty off at someone if I so desire. Military cubes, I don't have enough to do shit with. I might want to shift 2 cubes over there to deal with unrests and whatnot. But my current cards have central authority. I can increase stability. Now, the first one's going to cost me 2. The second one would cost me 3. That would use everything up and get me 2 pops forward. As an alternative, and what certainly would have been stronger earlier, is to play development and then missionaries a few times. That would use all 5 of my cubes in $3, and I could convert the religion of areas that are troublesome. I think that is still the better move, because I'm going to suffer so much from all the religious problems that I have. And there are a lot. So let's go with that. Enough information I could min-max this, and actually probably figure this one out pretty easily if I looked at the victory point chart. I don't want to do that. You know, calculating out victory points in some games feels right. In this, maybe because of the original, I just don't feel it. Also, maybe just because, yeah, it's still kind of a complex, you know, pile of pieces of information. But I could compare simply, you know, hey, how much is each stability point worth? How much am I likely to lose on average due to the religious issues? Fuck it. Plan, I remembered I forged myself an alliance here. That's just normal activity. I'm working to try to get this. France, I think, is delaying action. I don't have a hell of a lot I want to do. I'm thinking about secure the Low Countries, going to war with the Dutch, and just hoping I can smash my way through and ignoring my internal problems. Yeah, that's not wise. I don't have a way to get rid of my religious unrest other than just brutally, you know, bashing through. What I do have is central authority. I can actually pay nothing and increase my stability. And that sounds good enough. This card goes on. Not sure what I did last time with Spain. However, I have this missionary. That's something interesting. But I was realizing the rights of man out here, I'm actually the person positioned for it. Turkey already has tolerance, so they don't really want to do it. No one else is revolutionary except Spain and Turkey. Okay. However, there's this Constitution of Cadiz out here. Now, restore absolutism, I gain a couple of cubes, but I get a bunch of unrest. I've got a lot of big towns on the map, or cities on the map, or whatever. I really don't want to cause that much unrest. So then the other option, liberalism, I don't get Ferdinand VII, fine. I have to disband and exhaust all land units on distant continents. And well, that's fine. I don't have anybody right now. Okay? And then I can pay 3 peace to research constitutional monarchy, or 3 diplomacy. If I had the diplomacy, that might be the best route to go. Get rid of my, I think I'm revolutionary right now, right? I think the 2 revolutionary realms are revolutionary regime. God knows what that does, right? Later effects, okay, great. I think they all are later effects, but I'm not positive of this. And I would have to keep reading all the cards all the time to be up on that. But the Rights of Man is interesting. First of all, it gives me the ability to add more revolutionary regime, which I could use. Someone made me counter-reform over there somehow. And this, you gain a point. You can research tolerance for 3 admin. That would kill my ability to do a missionary, but this will do at least that. All other players can then pay 3 admin and 1 diplomacy. But then there's this players with revolutionary regime idea get a further discount of 1. I think that applies to everybody in the paragraph, so it includes me. So that would be kind of cool. Then I'd still be able to do the religious. And then everybody who has tolerance can remove a couple of unrest. And if you have absolute monarchy, you're screwed, but I don't think anybody's left with absolute. I'm not sure. Yeah, we have constitutional monarchies here. Which again, I have to remember. I hope I did last time. I think I remembered one, but maybe not both. Like I remembered the, I don't know. The whole tableau of cards over there is just so problematic for me. All right, so we will do this. Not because of anything in particular. We're not in any rush to get it out, but what the hell. Okay. So we get a point. I can pay 2 for tolerance. Sounds good to me. Unless I already have it. I don't remember. A third person has it. I think it's Austria. Yeah. That will give me some advantage in reducing unrest through the rest of the game. It also gives me control over a lot of little markers here. I'm going to lose an advisor. Who cares? They don't matter anymore. Okay, so now every other player will get a choice to research tolerance. And no one's getting a discount because Turkey already has it. By picking it up, I get 2 points for the thing. That'll apply to anybody else who picks it up too. Enough people have it already, 3 of them, that nobody's getting a bonus off of it. Now it's 4, so. People who don't have it, England and France, don't have enough admin cubes to do anything with it. So now everybody gets to remove 2 unrest. Nobody has absolute monarchy. Okay, so yeah, I'll just kind of pick those out. Whither and whence I wish. Nice thing, out of the players who had the advantage, Austria only had 1 unrest they could remove. Everyone else could remove the 2, so it was okay. But I had the biggest unrests that I could remove, the ones that have the most potential effect. And now we look at all the event effects. First is a disloyal vassals. And, oh, by the way, it doesn't affect vassals. It's within your realm, so like this couldn't have been reduced. Anyone who has vassals with either no cubes or with fewer cubes than any opponent, they gain unrest on their vassals there, or must place rebels equal to the number of vassals that have unrest. So, oh, and must. Okay. And the player who played this, the Spaniards, get unrest, but they do not get any troops, so it doesn't sort of almost automatically rebel. I am affected. I have no cubes here, nor here, nor here, so I'm actually pretty badly affected by this. I might have wanted to do a diplomacy, except I have none, to try to fix this before I draw this card. I'll look at the rest of the people. I had a nasty effect so far. I'm not done. I did Britain and Austria afterwards. Britain, all their Portuguese possessions are, you know, leaving, which is pretty bad. Austria, well, the Italian possession is in play here. Now that could actually affect the Spaniards as well, but I don't know what the priority is. I suspect this goes before that does. The larger towns go first. I thought it was going to be worse because of Brandenburg, but I got cubes in Brandenburg, so I'm safe there. Oh boy, Poland. Oh, poor Poland. Wow. Poor Poland, because all of Lithuania is one of these. I don't know how they avoided this before. I may have not noticed, or maybe somehow or another Poland just constantly was the one playing these. I don't think that's the case. I think I just fucked up. Now the Spaniards get to expand 4 revolutionary areas. In a way, this makes sense, right? Mix this with the nationalism, and what you have is these sort of client states saying, you know what, we have our own interests. We're not so tied as absolute clients. I thought Turkey was going to be bad, but they threw a lot of cubes down, similar to Austria here, with the intent of a subjugation card. Poland, on the other hand, didn't have all their cubes spread out all over. They only have the Western Ukrainian area. Everything else is, up in arms and in flame. And that's going to be really problematic. That's going to badly hurt them as the leading player. And so that's kind of a cool card. It's not enough to help Spain, but it certainly helps both Turkey and Austria. To point out countermix limitations, I'm using pirates for these. I don't recall if black rebel soldiers, we can look it up, wherever it is. I don't really trust this though. Tokens that may not be moved. Black units in use as allied units cannot. Unlimited tokens. Some tokens are unlimited. These include ducats, war truce. Yeah, so I think black units, we wouldn't have this many, and what would happen is the Spaniards, I guess, would have the opportunity to pull some off the board. Or some, no, the player who's affected, I guess, is the one who actually does this. So we would have hit, so things like this, where there were already rebels. Again, I don't buy it, right? I buy that general revolution across the country, across the map makes sense. And the idea that like, oh look, Turkey's got a problem where they've got, because they played last, a rebellion in Tripoli, that's going to remove some of their problems in the homeland. I find that hard to accept. Again, you could probably make a stretch and say, well, I can imagine the case where, the internal situation stabilizes due to a horrible event happening out here. But it's hard to believe, especially in sort of a pre-20th century period, that news would, well, we got 5 years or whatever, but that things would calm down due to that. So like the religion and everything, this feels like, I don't know, an aberration if you play the rules as written, and you just can't do it. So, making sure that I don't have the ability to get one up into there. Doesn't look like I do. Going down to even less and less noticeable counters in play, but Spain is able to take care of their problem. These aren't necessarily new. This one is, but spread into Austria, well, into the Tyrol here. I want to do Austria itself. No, because then they might become revolutionary. We want the revolution to spread and cause problems, and up into Poland. Doesn't help me. I can't attack Turkey this way. Of course, if I was playing by the rules, I could attack Turkey by stripping the revolutionary ideal from them, ruining their own religious situation. It makes being a revolutionary government horrible, right? Like, you absolutely do not want to be holding that red there. Right now, there's too two countries that really want it. You might make an argument that France might be heading that way. The reason is because the reason it's a big thing is there's nothing to counteract. So there should be a wave of counteraction, right? Where old ways, this is the solution I would suggest, is that there's an anti-revolutionary similar bent, perhaps, which, yeah, removing them would make some sense. But that anti-revolutionary, it really should be based on something like these organized clusters and whatever. It's also kind of iffy to me. So like, I would say the Metternich system would be the thing that would kind of create that if possible, but I'm not really sure that anything created, like that there was a movement against revolutionaryism or revolutionary ideals. You know, because if you look at France, revolutionary France pre-Napoleon had one sort of concept. The revolutionary ideal post-Napoleon, the one that seems like it lasts or whatever, was kind of different. It was more like nationalism rather than simply, you know, rights of man and all this. So I don't know what it's supposed to represent exactly. And again, you know, I feel like it's kind of both, in which case nationalism did take root and did take hold. And Austria was the most opposed to nationalism. Nationalistic fervor is what caused the revolts of the 1850s, in conjunction with some of those other ideals as well. Anyway, now we're on to the Unrest Rebellion, which is rolling dice. Spain only has to roll 1, which is good. They do not have a lot of areas. How is this worded? For each of their provinces, so I don't have to do vassals for this. Screwed up, there are no cubes here. These are both collapsing as well, that I did not notice. The other things are alliances, and that means, geez. All right, I guess we're going to put mercenary units on the board. I don't think they're allowed to be on the board normally, so put them up there. This part wasn't terribly painful. People lost things they can afford to lose, cubes, money, troops, whatever. But the cubes, well, money is dangerous because some of these people are running pretty close to their bankruptcy limits, and they're going to be in trouble. They're going to take penalties on victory points for being so far in debt. But they're also, you know, risking sort of much worse collapses to happen. But also cube loss, cube attrition at this point really sucks. When it happens in the normal phase of the game, when it happens, you lose some cubes. Great, next turn you're going to be weakened. You know, that's basically, you know, your stockpile of cubes is gone. Chances are you're actually out of cubes and you end up spending money instead. So that's not that big. And now we look for triangles. For the most part, not too important. You know, a ruler got sick. I noticed one interesting thing. The Jacobin Club, that can continue indefinitely. You can kind of understand that no one person would die, but you kind of feel like, I don't know what you would feel. To me, it seems like there's no, it's the closest to there's a republic in Turkey, I guess. But it's fairly weak. It's not good at diplomacy, which makes sense because it's... But Maria Theresa died. That's a big deal. Because, first of all, the Austrians can look, do they have a ruler? They do. It's probably a good idea to put it down. I'm not sure. We were going to go to war, I think. I'm always iffy on this because they could die now, whereas I could play them later and they can't. But we do hit the Holy Roman Empire. I think we're still safe. Let's just take a quick look at the election, just to make sure. If the emperor has +4 or less, no. So it's an automatic succession to the next emperor. And an interregnum would be fine. It would just be a minor or something that's in charge. But yeah, I'll put the leader down, whatever. That gets us to the English. But before we do them, I've put the money out. But let's look at the next card. The Congress of Vienna. All players who do not have revolutionary regime idea must choose. Concert of Europe. If half or more of all players in the game pick this option, they each gain 3 diplomacy and all other players lose 3 cubes. Nasty, nasty, nasty. Everybody wants this, right? No time to talk. You and all adjacent opponents gain a military. Well, it seems clear to me you're going to go with Concert of Europe. Now, what's weird here is this is what triggers the P. Okay, you know, the Napoleonic Wars have been in effect, I guess, since they showed up, right? That's what it kind of means. But it's not like we've been seeing a lot of warfare because of them. Some, but I don't feel like they've really triggered much. And now the Congress of Europe happens. That would be, in my view, like the Metternich system. These really kind of reflect the post-war period. They belong in this part of this deck. This is the final, 15, 20 years of the game. Yeah, this is the end of the Napoleonic Wars and a few years past it. So it does kind of make sense that it came out this late. It didn't have to. It could have happened earlier. Of course, not too much earlier. It could have happened in the immediately preceding quarter deck. The half deck before this half was the 7 Years' War deck, and it had to be, just by the way these fire off. I think there's almost no chance. Oh wait, the revolutionary regimes do not pick. So there's going to be 2 players who don't pick the revolutionary regime, who can't pick Concert of Europe. Which means there's only 4 players, 3 of which have to pick the Concert of Europe to trigger the effects of it. I still think it's the best thing to do, but if you had a third revolutionary regime, it might be quite possible that like one player outside of the revolutionaries would be able to say, yeah, Congress of Europe's not going to work. In which case, maybe everybody would pick the no time for talk. That kind of makes sense. Europe would be in such disarray at that point. So I do remember that England was making these plans to try to make a continental war. Unfortunately, we just had sort of this Portuguese colonial, because Portugal itself no longer exists, it's been absorbed by Spain, revolt. And all of Portugal is, all of the Portuguese territories are going to be a problem for us. Oh boy, I don't mind this, other than from a, wow, this is a pain in the ass that came out of nowhere. I feel like I do have to take a peek at the final scoring here. So, current tax income, which would include some of these. Just making sure. Yeah, so that's what I would get as the tax value of those. And that's not that high. It's 1, 2.5. I have a unit here which could siege this. Then I have a space in unrest. Might be my best move right now. Just get that out of the way. Make my decision later. See, I have a military technology. I actually could research a military technology, but if I don't go to war, I could use this, the revolutionary idea, to research a military technology. I'm not going to get the extra point off of it. I don't have the stability. Fuck it. I can't do that. Okay. So yeah, I think I'm still playing around with the idea of going to war with the Dutch, because they count for my continental possessions goal. And it's sort of the only way I can get a goal. But in order to fight the Dutch, I have to move a navy out, and all kind of ugliness ensues. The way I could do it, though, is I could shift this using a trade action, which would use my diplomacy cube instead of a military cube. That would be advantageous. Wish I could use one of these, but and then I wouldn't have an immediate fight, and on the declaration of war I could ship my whole fleet in to fight the Dutch, and then I could get the cube back for the declaration of war there. Advance in, fight them. This is going to be a big fight, the first one, and seize as much of their territory as I can. Austria has to do this before, and where are my diplomats? I don't know where the diplomats are. Is that this? No. It's this one. Yeah, I don't have that. Okay. I want to be able to play my subjugate. I'm just going to drop something here in Brandenburg that'll allow me to play it. That moves me back around, and I'm done for an entire cycle, which is good. I'm not playing raid right now. That's the issue. But I have a clan thing happening later tonight, and that's why I'm saving my time. The thing is, I've actually been reading a fair amount. I mean, not as much as I do when I'm really into reading, but yeah, I should have another book thing very soon. Well, now I have two addictions, not just one. I know the reading will fade at some point, and I never feel any guilt about it. However, I'm looking at the polls. It's their turn, and boy, do they have a mess. They're going to get cut in half, basically. The only thing I feel I can do is to try to rectify this situation. However, I don't have the cubes to do much about it. So basically, we're going to see, Lithuania pretty much just disappear from my territory. I have a siege assault. That doesn't really help me. Nothing's been conquered. Nothing's going to be conquered. These aren't core provinces that will remain empty. And I will probably have claims against Lithuania for whatever that's worth. Not a hell of a lot else. How's my army? Well, I got a lot of cav and some artillery sitting over here. And I'm in range that I can deal with a couple of things. So, the question, and of course I can gain cubes through actions. So that's a possibility. The question is whether my army is big enough for me to deal with. Let's just put this here. Actually, I have two armies on the board. I guess this one's actually not on the board. I don't see anything there. Yeah, you know what? A piece this had gotten bumped. I'm thinking that this is what we actually have. I'm not sure. But I had bumped things and things got rearranged. I'm going to say this is what we have. Oh boy. What the hell? How do I cope with this? I don't have many answers. I still think the Cav army down here is the more powerful of them. The question is whether I need to build up some infantry, because I'm going to inevitably take some hits from my attacks. That costs me a cube, but I could also build forces here. I don't have anything that's going to allow me to make multiple attacks, though. A cube, and I spent everything that I have. I did build armies here for that. I think I'm maybe better just shifting everything over here. Did I have enough? I could build 4 there. Yeah, let's just make one big army. Let's move the king over there, and we'll shift down. Turkey has problems as well. We're going to follow up with our subjugate card and take control of Tunis. We have to spend 3 for that. That will give us the Barbary Coast. First of all, we get 4 victory points, which is great, because we think Poland's going to just collapse here. Austria is still in good shape. We're tied with them. We're a little bit more troubled than Austria right now. Who is it who... Austria was going to go to war with Poland. Oh, wow. Okay. We gain 2 galleys and a claim in any of the above areas. This is a problem. We can't gain any galleys because we got these here. There's no room to place them. Again, there's something really problematic about the way the fleets are placed, whatever. These areas are Tripolitania, Tunisia, and Algiers. I don't have any claims remaining. I have claim to one of them. Just get rid of this. So I get no advantage other than the victory points for it. And that moves us on. But I wanted to claim them while I can. It's made it out largely unscathed. Yes, there's a rebellion over here, and that's problematic. And actually, I think there's 2 there, because there was one previously. Interesting. Those will add to the NPR forces there if I attack the Netherlands. I'm very tempted to attack the Netherlands, but I don't want to do it until I clear that shit out of the way. So if I go for secure the Low Countries, huge amount of points. See, the thing is, I'm not going to win no matter what, right? I'm in 5th place. You could say, yeah, you know, you could solidify your position and hold on to 5th place because the English have their problems with the Portuguese vassal revolting. You're in a position to deal with this with very few troops. And then you could get rid of some of that unrest and reduce your chances of something terrible happening. But honestly, if I get really, really lucky, maybe something fantastic could happen. So that's what I'm going to aim for. Something fantastic. Now, I want to look at the events here. Cadiz doesn't do me any good. Congress of Europe, I could pick this now or later and probably get myself 3 peace cubes, right? Just because all the non-revolutionary players will want that. Or I could pick the no time for talk. Well, no, each player has to pick, right? Yeah. So as the first player picking, I would pick the concert of Europe. And the thing is, neither of the revolutionaries can pick it, but it only takes 3 players to pick it. So, I mean, I could gain something out of this. Someone else could play this as well, though. The only thing I'm a little worried about is there is an expansion of the Dutch. They wouldn't get an attack on me, but they might be able to do something obnoxious with it. I'm just not sure. And that's one reason that I might want to pick this. Now, circles die. Do I care about that? Oh... Not really. Not really, because advisors don't really matter for much. The other thing that's of interest is the Metternich system. Form Holy Alliance. Austria would be presumably able to pay diplomacy markers to gain alliances. That doesn't sound safe, especially if Austria is thinking about a war or something. So I think I'll hold off on doing any of those events. What do I have in hand? Nothing that's terribly interesting. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to build an army over here to begin with. Well, I can't get a very big one. This is the problem. I can only get a 4-point army. I need a much, much bigger army to deal with the Dutch. Shit. But I'm going to have a fair amount of cubes. Unfortunately, remember, sieges cost 1 per dude that I transfer. If I could get this back for but it's going to cost me a cube to get one gun into place. All right, let's try to build one. I have a fair amount of money. I have diplomacy cubes. Maybe it's time to try a trade action. Try to get a little, because 20 may not work for the size of an army that I intend to build. Cards, including one that's useless, but the English Channel one, I can't really make money off that. I would have like, because the pirate there, I would drop off the chart. But there's a Bordeaux here, which will work. And I believe I have all 4 territories there. I'm not positive because I know some stuff has fallen, but they all sound French to me. Burgundy is not on there. I was like, Bourbon Limousin. Yeah, this looks good to me. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow. But I dropped down one, so I only get $5 for it. Penalty for revolution is too nasty. Spain is going to siege something, I guess. This is no longer problematic. This is no longer problematic. I'll just take it out of Castile. You can kind of see, because siege only lets you take one thing, most of the other actions, a cube gives you a lot of stuff. In terms of the time track, this is kind of painful, plinking away a thing at a time. Now, siege can let you take more than one thing. If you've got armies, you can spend more cubes, but I think, well, let me check. Maybe I've been misplaying this or misunderstanding it because it isn't something that's come up before for me. So let's take a look at the siege operation. Basically, I'm wondering, can I siege everywhere where I have armies? Which I haven't been doing. I can almost guarantee that. No, it's an activation. It's a land activation. Pick an area with at least one of your armies. Yeah. So, you know, if you have a lot of provinces in an area that are in revolt, that are, you know, that you desire to siege, that's great. You know, you can spend a couple of cubes and take four points of areas or whatever with that, if you've got the artillery in place for it. But under this kind of circumstance where you've got a lot of little revolts all over the place, yeah, you kind of have to do it one at a time. So you're using one action for each siege. Much, much slower. Does that make sense? I don't know. You know, again, how much time in an action is the question. I can guarantee you there's less than, so each round of cards is 15 to 20 years, right? It's maybe even more. I don't remember. I seem to remember 22 coming to mind, but let's say it's 15 years, just assuming there's distortion in time period size and whatever, which there might be. Well, there are not 15 times around the board, ever. You know, you might have 15 cubes, right? But there are not 15 times around the board. It's more probably like 6 to 8. which means you're talking about at least 2 years per action. Now, this is not the time of blitzkriegs, etc. But again, you know, I mean, think about the Napoleonic sweep back and forth all the way through Spain and back, right? Things which happened in the course of what would be a card or a single action or two. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the sieges and whatnot, it's very hard to accept that if I had armies deployed for sieges all over the place, that they wouldn't all be able to activate at once. But again, there's all this abstraction around the cubes, around the time. It really bothers me. The cubes I don't even understand. Time I do understand, and that bothers me a lot. Anyway, on to England. I was dealing with what looked like hopeless situations. Now, I was considering an attack into the Netherlands. England and France should make an alliance and divvy it up. But again, that's not a key area, so it's a little less valuable than it could be. Which is why I went and grabbed an alliance down in Rome. But there aren't really any key areas that I can intervene in. I'm looking at the possibility. I'm looking at two things that both look really impossible for me to do. One is invading the Dutch. Be a lot easier if the French do it, you know, first, then I can go in second or whatever. Another would be trying to keep the Portuguese holdings in place. That's probably out of the question. This one, I could actually just spend a cube and do a 1 versus 1 fight and maybe win, maybe not. I could build an army, though, if I'm building another army to deal with these guys down here. Now, I'm going to lose all of this if I don't do something about it. And it feels like that's more valuable than going to war with the Dutch. So, what do I want to do? I believe what I want to do is build an army. I have shit for cash, so I too will trade. Trading kind of sucks because I'm using my last diplomatic cube, but I think there's something that gives a diplomatic cube here. Congress of Europe gives cubes. I'm counting on that being played in our favor, although Turkey or Spain could take it and grab themselves some military cubes with it. They haven't so far. It doesn't mean they won't. Maybe I should just do it. Is that the most important card? What else is left here? I don't know. That I consider that a good thing. However, somebody, you know, if you were playing by the intention of the game, I think you would have that the entire deck structure memorized and know what all the events are going to be. A la a Paths of Glory type situation. Oh, do I want to trade? Or do I want to ensure that the Congress of Europe... Oh, no. The Congress of Europe, everybody gets to pick. It's not the main player. I keep getting that confused. What is the other one? The Metternich system would give me a piece that's useful. I could get a couple of bucks, also useful. Might be worth grabbing rather than a trade. Yeah, let's do this. So we're going to take the Metternich system. That will give Austria the option of taking France, which will spark another of course, I might get called into a war. Okay. I am going to take Form Holy Alliance. Austria may pay 1 diplomacy to offer alliances up to 2 Christian opponent realms. Whoa-ho-ho-ho-ho-ho! Have 3 or more and 3 or more marriages with at least 4 different realms, including at least 1 opponent. I don't have the 3 marriages, but I could probably buy it. Huh. Who do I want to ally with? Who would help me? If I'm going to war with Poland, I don't want to spend too many of these, although I could get 2 stability off of it. Yeah. I only have 1 alliance left, though. What is it? It's like the cabinet is the idea that gives you extra things. Is there an alliance that I would not mind getting rid of? And possibly. I have a crappy little alliance down here in North Italy. It's not really doing me any good anymore. My other alliance is more valuable. It's there in Bavaria. There's, you know, a lot of territories in it. That might be actually useful to call into a war. Although, of course, it's going to be an aggressive war. So yeah, I'm going to offer alliances to, who are my Christian realms? Well, that's England and I'm assuming the revolutionaries aren't Christian. Even though they kind of are, like the underlying is Christian, but I'm going to get offered to both England and France. England's the first player here. I believe they will accept, well, maybe not. Who are we allied to? We're allied here, here, and down there. Huh. See, these 2 could be active allies against the Dutch if I go to war with them. This is Catholic. Less likely to hold it. Yeah, we will make an alliance with the Austrians. And that means both parties gain a stability. And the French, now, I have to remove a marker if the French accept, and they're almost certain to. The French will also accept an alliance, and the Austrians were going to give this up to ally with France, and that's another stability for Austria. This was a nice play for the Austrians, really helps them out. Remember, they're up in the running for the game, and they're being kind of handed this. The Brits gain the diplomatic cube that they want, and the Austrians have the choice to take Franz II. They don't have to because they didn't play the card. I do not want him. His values are pretty much unimportant to me. They're less than Robert's. The only thing that has value on a leader card to me is the military capability, which I'm going to want, and that's better than Franz's, and possibly admin to be able to do excellent years or whatever. There might be something else, but I can't think of it. So this goes away. Did I move the English? I did not. The Austrians are pretty happy. They might have chosen that themselves. And we draw a new one. Yeah. The Lion of Yanya. Okay, we have an excellent Turkish leader. So it is actually now possible to get rid of the Jacobite club, or Jacobin club. Give me his head. Ottomans lose 2 military cubes and must exhaust 4 armies. Well, that sucks. Insubordinate Pasha. Remove all Ottoman units, maximum 6, from one area as casualties. If possible, pick an area with 3 or more Ottoman units. If no units to remove, pick Greece. Then add an equal number of rebels, minimum 4, and unrest to any 3 towns or vassals in that area. Wow, this is a horrible card. The Ottomans just don't want this picked, but maybe they have to pick it to reduce the effects. I don't know which is worse. I guess the insubordinate Pasha is worse than cutting off his head. But if the Ottomans pick it, they get Murad, who is significantly worse. I don't think it matters again. On this last turn of the game, the leadership values don't matter. This is very different from the original game. In the original game, well, no. On the last turn of... So, in the original game, you don't get to choose whether or not you're losing your leader. But if you did lose your leader at the end of the last turn of the game, or during the last turn of the game, it wouldn't really matter. But it would matter if you lost them when you were likely to lose them. Here, because everything's mashed together, your leaders change in the course of, everything, right? So it can have you'd think it would have more impact. But it doesn't, because the only effect that they really have, other than their military capability, is... There should be like a Captain No or something in there. I think that's who he is. In the Jacobin Club. The only effect that it has really is in how many cubes that you get during the course of your turn, and your leader if you use your royal as a leader. It could also matter that you lose a leader not through those cards, but through casualty or illness or something, and that could cause you to lose points at the end of the game, essentially, due to the interregnum if you can't replace them. But in the original EU, if you lost your leader, it probably happened during, just before you did that big economic phase, and your leader's values matter for that economic phase. So there was no period where like, oh, I lost a leader, who cares? Anyway. And I mean, there's the possibility of that here anyhow, which is that like you lose a leader, but there's one sitting over there that you're going to take anyway or something like that. Let's think about our Austrians. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with them now. Yes, I do. I got a subjugate card. I am taking Brandenburg. That gets me around the table this time. When I came up here, my plan was, all right, let's do the, let's make sure we get around in every day. I may not make it, and have to do my jury duty if I get lucky. I mean, the chances of me actually being selected for a jury are so low. I've been in the pool. I've been in the pool a couple of times where I'm just told, go home. Not here, and in Phoenix, I was in and was selected for a trial, I was selected at random as the group that went in to go deal with a trial. And I was dismissed very rapidly. But I don't... people try to weasel out of it or whatever. To me, just answering questions, honestly, I don't trust cops, just almost immediately disqualifies me. And I mean, I'm being honest. Here we are on Wednesday, piddling through, doing one round around, and make sure I get a play in each turn, each day. And, although I've been throwing a lot of time into it, I feel some of the fever is breaking in terms of my addiction to raid, and I don't know. Maybe it's just that I've been pulling books that I really kind of want to read out. But it's like, yeah, you know, I don't want to sit there and have Raid playing in the background, even on auto while I'm reading. I just want to curl up or go outside and sit. It's not like I'm doing anything useful. But I do know that the reading addiction does sort of go in a pattern. Of course, so did this kind of game addiction. What's not happening is I'm not getting any real desire to be pushing forward with my board games, which is really kind of a shitty thing because, well, first of all, I'm in the middle of this. But, you know, I'm still ordering shit from GMT, and probably at a rate that is, you know, barely sustainable, right? Like if I just played those games, yet I still have, you know, over 500 unvideoed games. Not unplayed, but a whole fair amount of them are completely unplayed because I tended to video a lot of my old favorites. I don't know. It's probably 50-50 as to unplayed. Anyway, because I also tend to video something new that comes in that I'm excited about or whatever. We are on the polls, and yeah, they're in hell. There are all kind of yummies I could do here, especially the development, which I laid out in order to change some religions. I think it's more important that I stop this revolution while it's happening. So, we're going to take a cube here and move 2 to military. We may not need 2, right? Because each time we spend 1, we get a chance of winning the battle and getting a cube back. And that's really, you know, we can put down a revolt on 1 cube. The limitation is we got so many revolts, that 1 cube might take us all turn to do. So we're going to push for that more because of the possible time constraint. I don't think I want to play with cards, do I? I mean, I'm not going to use any of this shit, so why not? But what might I use? That's a good question. What cards might I use? I'm definitely not using Harbor Refugees. Siege Assault, absolutely uninteresting. Tactical Retreat, uninteresting. I'm probably going to throw those and draw 2 more. And I don't have the money, so I don't have to worry about the discard piles. Got more or less what we wanted. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, I'm definitely not going to pull any military cards because I know what I need to do with those. Admin, I probably shouldn't have pulled because I have these development cards that I want to use. But that's what I went for. Why? Oh, fuck. Well, I got kind of lucky. I got a Man of the Church. But that's going to cost me money. I don't have money. Okay, so I draw again. I get an exceptional year. That gives me money and removes an unrest. It is a 2-pip card, though. It means no religious modifications. So I probably should have done the diplomacy. I don't know why I didn't. Just not thinking clearly. I couldn't think of anything that I would do with a diplomacy card, to tell you the truth. That's really what it came down to. I'm like, well, there are admin cards I would want to use. I can't think of a damn thing that a diplomacy card would do for me right now. I'm just in such a hellish position. And it's this late part of the game. Something I often forget to do when I first get up here, like with those, I forget to look at the events. Poland might have wanted to do an event. We can consider this. I don't know. I don't think so. The only thing really is this Ottoman one. But now I've got to consider it with the Ottomans. The problem is they don't want this played. They do not want it played. So who's likely to play it? Well, Austria and Poland both have a card available. Both have an event available. They could both hit me with it if I don't take it. Losing 2 military and exhausting 4 armies over here is really a pretty light cost. So I'm tempted. Just because I am in the running for victory, and those other players may hit me with this if I don't pick it. Indeed, the choice I'm going to take with the Turks. You could argue, hey, look, Poland, you know, wow, it kind of sucks that Poland has the first player thing, because every time I come up, I'm going to be less aware of this. In fact, less aware of everything, right? Whoever has the first player probably is going to be making shoot from the hip decisions while I try to get into the game a little bit. So I like just look at their position and try to do it. On the other hand, one, I've already drawn some cards, so it's hard to unwind what happened. And two, Poland's situation is so dire that they could be distracted very easily from seeing stuff. So I don't mind too much, although it is quite possible they would have picked this just to fuck the Turks over and give them their worst version. But the Turks are going to take the, give me his head. Yes, losing 2 cubes is the good result. And exhausting 4 of these. As well as getting a slightly worse leader. How big a deal is that slightly worse leader? Pretty much not at all. Yeah, he's got no military capabilities, but he serves no purpose. Especially since I have an advisor here, that means that I have enough points if I have the kind of year that I, the exceptional year card or something like that, that gets benefited by that. Of course, I forgot to come over here. I've put the cash down already. And we draw the Industrial Revolution. You may pay 3 admin to research the Industrial Revolution idea and take a free trade action, providing that you meet at least 3 of these conditions. 2 or more large ports on the main map. Own 2 or more distant provinces. This is going to be a hard one to meet. Now, remember, we can skip 1. Right now, it looks to me like only France and Spain are colonial nations. The 2 or more large ports, well, that's not Poland. That's not Austria. But anyone else, I think, has it. Have the scientific revolution idea. Okay, well, this is gonna be painful. Scientific revolution, and figuring out these constraints should be easy, but it's painful to try to do it off the card itself. So that is not Austria and not Poland. Okay, so Austria and Poland are out. They can't do this, right? Because they missed the port, they missed that. So the only 2 people, and own no gold provinces. Well, la-di-da. Gold province is a pain in the ass. The French own one. So they're out on that. But they meet the other 3, right? So they're okay. Of course, one of the biggest things is, who has 3 admin to spare? And the answer to that is Austria. Other people could do a reorg to get it. How big a deal is the scientific revolution? I don't know. Or the industrial revolution? I don't know. It says research that idea. It doesn't tell me where the idea is. I'm going to guess that it's admin. There it is. Now, I get 1 chance to use this, and it's only worth 2 victory points, right? When all players have passed, take a free trade action, even using an activated merchant, drawing from the top of the discard pile, or develop a small into a large for free. Trade action sounds like, it's the first option, right? Sounds like it should be the better, the more likely to be picked one. Yeah, no. Like we've noted in the game, almost no one has a desire to take a trade action. The only time you take trade is when your economy is so shot, right? There's no real concept of investing your money or anything like that. Just being able to churn your money into making more money, no kind of snowballing type, that kind of resource thing. Now, you just need enough money to operate. We can compare that to the original game. In the original game, money was fairly rare for the early part of the game, say the first couple of eras, until you start getting your merchants out there and your colonies out there and start really cranking cash. And then for some of the countries, there's plenty of money to kind of build an engine, and eventually you get to the point where you're producing more money than you need. There's nothing you can really do with your money. There's no kind of, hey, I can put it in the bank and just invest it or whatever. No option like that. In fact, it does actually decrease each turn, similar to this game's, I don't know, I would expect it to be here or something, but this game has an attrition, a money attrition table, which is fine. It makes absolute sense. A government with too much money will spend it on stupid things. But and to some extent you could say, well, that isn't that kind of the same. Yeah, except that initial money, like, it does actually matter where you put your money initially. Simply growing big doesn't necessarily give you as much income return in the original game as developing a merchant class or colonizing. But colonizing doesn't tend to bring you a whole lot of money. What does is the monopolies that you get off the resources that you control. So if you have towns that give you certain resources. In this game, trade seems to play so little a part of the game compared to, and trade being those two components, which were huge components in the original game and in the early versions of the computer game. I don't know how much that's changed, but I suspect that they've maintained a fair amount of that. That control of resource production centers, which aren't really represented much on the map. There's just the gold card, but they're represented by these cards, which works, except there's no visual, you can't look at the map and say, nobody's got spice, I'll take spice. And in fact, there is no idea of that, right? So like, being the only colony that produces something doesn't give you much. What to do is have lots of colonies that produce stuff, and you get a little bit off of there not being competition, but not much. Basically, if you're the top dog, if you have what would account as a partial monopoly, I guess, in the original game, you're doing fairly well. But there's no real concept of having a total monopoly in a commodity or in a trade zone. And yeah, I mean, also there's very little competition in here. I'm not seeing merchants sitting around in trade zones. I'm not seeing that being a particular advantage. I mean, sure, you'd rather leave somebody sitting on one of these just in case somebody else goes and hits it and scores for it. Because you'll be the top dog, and then even if the other guy has a good value, they won't get quite as much, But yeah, I'm just not seeing the effects of the monopoly, and I'm certainly not seeing the effects of controlling a commodity, which is a huge concept in the original. If you control the commodity, what happens? If you have a monopoly, I think you just get a big bonus of cash when that commodity's trade value is assessed. Also, trade is automatic in the original, and I've mentioned this before. You got your merchants out there, they just produce your income. You don't have to expend a cube. You don't have to spend money, the closest equivalent to a cube, or for the most part roll a die, although prices are affected by die roll. Prices on commodities, and not so much shipping. There's competition among merchants, which is affected by die roll. these are the only things that your monarch affects, right? The monarch, the government, the quality of your government affects your likelihood to win competitions, and it affects, doesn't affect prices. But anyway, you've got all these, in this game, you have to expend a very, very limited resource, a cube, each time you want to try to dredge out, a couple of bucks off the trade powers, and it's not worth it. Those cubes and the actions on the timer are worth too much unless you're basically bankrupt and you need, your government needs to do something to generate the trade. And what does it even fucking mean, right? You've got your merchants out there, you've explored, you've got your ships positioned and everything, and yet you still have to go out and, I don't know, tax them or something? I don't know. I really don't know. But it really kind of doesn't feel, how come you don't have to spend a cube to collect your tax income off your towns, right? That would sort of make sense. That would kind of equal the version out of it. It feels to me, it really reduces the value of trade and of any kind of commodities, which are also represented on the trade card. The funny thing there is the actual control of the commodity spaces itself, I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. Like, what I feel like the Age of Renaissance model where somebody plays a card and it generates, I don't like the holding cards and being able to play it or whatever, but essentially how many things you control of that commodity basically gives you your value, and it scales upward kind of like civilization does, where monopoly is basically reflected by how much of the market you actually have in your hand. Well, on the board, whatever. Anyway, this is why the videos are so long, isn't it? But this game gives me so fucking much to sort of, like, most Euros I look at, right? And I'm going to call this a Euro for this matter. Most Euros I look at and I'm like, gosh, I don't know what the fuck's going on. And I feel like making fun of them is like kicking a crippled child. It's just like trying to make fun of what they're trying to represent. This game, I feel like it is actually trying to model at least the computer game version of EU. Yet, it's creating so many things that are distancing it from both the computer game, from the original concept, and of course, because those are more solidly in the simulation realm, from reality, and into the realm of being a Euro game where I'm worried about, can I turn my pigs into wood or something like that. Industrial Revolution is interesting. So anybody can pick this up and just get 2 admin. But it only affects the one player. It's not like some of these other cards that we've been seeing kicking around where everybody's got to make a choice or everybody gets the opportunity. Industrial Revolution, one player gets a benefit from it. Makes sense. England was really the only country to take advantage of this. Which means I could drop a cube and move things over to take that advantage. What would I get out of it? It looks to me like a couple of trade operations, right? We looked at what this does. This gives a trade action and a couple of victory points. So I'm not really looking at it as valuable. Like, it's not worth doing a reorg to get the cubes there to get the Industrial Revolution. It might be if the game was longer, if it went on past this period. Although I have to say, again, trade is just not that important, and that's what set me off on that, isn't it? So what are the French up to? We were talking about trying to secure the Low Countries. But it kind of doesn't look like we did anything about it. I'm looking for an army or something. What's up? Maybe I played an admin and changed a religion? I don't know. That's possible. Phew. We need an army. Oh, did we do a trade? Yeah, we did a trade. We grabbed some money. All right. We could keep doing trade. Keep grabbing money. Or do we have enough for our army yet? Because that's a big question. Huh. I'm here thinking, oh, we could colonize this. No, it's stupid claims on something. You cannot colonize that. However, if I build an army, I could declare war on Mali. Dude, that's bad though, because they have like 4 infantry. That's not easy for me to fight. And again, I no longer get anything off of that I really need. Okay. This is how I'm making my decisions. So there's only one of these left. Worst comes to worst, I could take the Industrial Revolution, but somebody might take that, and then I'm left with like no good choices. Of course, it's not like I really have anything to do with that admin card, do I? Not really. Does this give me cubes? I think so. Yeah, but still doesn't do a damn thing for me, because I would have to do, I would have to find a place to colonize for that to be worthwhile. Oh, shit me. Okay, guess we'll build an army. So 26 bucks gets me this. I don't know if it's big enough. Let's make sure. I have 6, 7, 8. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have a huge capacity if I build it here. I can't build it over there and get the immediate fight. So I have 8. Now, what am I going to be facing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's going to be a big fucking army. I can throw a cannon general in for another one of my cubes, but I'm really low on cubes, right? Or I can take out a loan, which remember cost me a victory point, but you know, I could win lots of battles here, right? A victory point for a loan, let's look, what do we get? I think it's 8. Yeah, we get $8 for that. That would give me 4 more infantry, and I have room for that. I think that's worth doing. And I guess keeps plinking along and sieging things. It's kind of funny to me, right? I don't think I've gone into this particular point yet, which is that conducting a military campaign doesn't cost money. Okay, it costs you a cube. But, you know, this is where I'm like, okay, look, maintaining an army costs you a certain amount of cash. There's no question about that. Building an army might cost you more than maintaining it. I'm almost willing to accept, I don't know, the kind of 2-to-1 level. That building costs for building infantry, kind of. And definitely, you know, the costs for the heavier types, I feel like they're more a play balance thing than anything else. Obviously, look, you know, you're talking manpower being converted to artillery. The artillery, I mean, there's no way that any army has a proportion of artillery equal to, but again, there may be some abstractions in there. You could convince me very easily that the cav proportions are reasonable, especially in kind of a medieval army, because the feudal levies don't count as really anything, right? And then, what do I do? I get rid of a cube somewhere. Why do I have so few cubes? There. I think I forgot to get rid of one before, too. Still got this to siege. Anyway, where am I? I'm lost. Oh, we gotta fight this, too. And this is gonna be painful. Of course, I can walk through here, pick up an infantry. That'll help me a little bit. Anyway. Wow. What am I thinking? Yeah. So there's a fundamental cost to building and maintaining a force. But in some ways, I would argue that maintaining a small force is fairly cheap, like a small standing force, compared to maneuvering and utilizing a larger force. Now, you could say, again, there's an abstraction, the maintenance money of that larger force or the cost of building it contains some of the costs for operations and whatnot. It just feels really odd to me that, everything feels odd to me, right? It does not feel unreasonable to me, especially in a later period of the game, that it wouldn't be. I don't know. It's these fucking cubes. I don't know what they represent. You know this. They do not represent anything to do with your board state or how wealthy you are or anything like that. They represent the capabilities of the government itself, right? So what does that kind of mean? And sort of my thinking goes immediately towards the military, but it kind of goes towards other things as well. So what it means is it takes a really good leader who's poor to actually collect taxes on merchants. That's one of the consequences of the way this model works. It takes, I don't know, the idea of conducting diplomacy, because of the time constraints and the possibilities of reorg and whatnot, can take away from your ability to fight military battles or to conduct, situations at home that improve your economic situation and whatnot. The whole cube mechanism just doesn't work for me, and it's so fundamental to the game. The cube and the round, these are the core elements that this design has. They're very gamey, and they seem to introduce the problems, right? But they're what ties everything together, So it's like, if you don't accept these, if you can't believe these, if you can't handle them, there's not much you can do to fix the game, except make it that game. I don't want that game, right? I love it. I love that game. But I'm not looking at trying to make a lightweight version of that. And that's why this intrigues me so much, and why I expend so much fucking energy on, trying to dissect it, trying to attack it, everything, is because I really do want to try to get a grasp and get my fingers in this and try to dig into it and see, is there some place this could go that would not just sort of leave me feeling not unfulfilled, almost misused by it, England, short on money for any of their military operations that they're looking for, and the opportunity to move a merchant into the English Channel, which is actually very important because I want to get my fleet, I don't know. I'm probably going to have to do a naval move anyway, and I'm going to gather my entire fleet, I think, in the English Channel to try to defeat the Dutch. But anyway, for the cash purposes, I draw one, and I'm lucky enough to get the English Channel card. That gets me way up on the top chart, down one for piracy. It's expanded, so I get $10 for that. That'll help. When I talk about, look, spending the administrative cube makes sense because, or one of the arguments in favor it could be, look, the government has to actually put some effort into collecting taxes or whatever. But it's not, right? The randomized trade deck means that, yeah, you're kind of putting some effort in, kind of, sort of, I guess, but you're not putting it in everywhere. You're not like trying to, it would make sense to me if you fired one of these off. There's two things that would make sense. A diplomatic cube maybe for the trade, and an administrative cube that you have to spend for tax collection. And that if you don't do those things, you don't get them, right? And you can only do them once. And you would get all your trade when you collect your trade, and all your tax collection. Now, of course, what government ignores doing those things? Would you actually like forego, and does it make sense, performing, taxing your trade in order to do more diplomacy, or collecting taxes in order to perform some public works construction or something? Does that even make sense? No, not really. But at least it would kind of fit in. I still feel like, just like the economics of the taxation, trade probably should get rid of the fucking randomized deck and be just an amount of money you get based on the commodities involved, very much like the other one. And the other one has all kind of cute little mechanisms that show the price points of things and show how many merchants are present in a certain area and everything. This doesn't work that way. I don't, again, the trade deck kind of feels like over 15 years, the only money I get from trade is that which I expend diplomatic power on to ensure that the trade happens, whatever, and actually collect the taxes and whatever. Otherwise, if I'm not ensuring that the trade happens or whatever, I guess just, all the merchants just take that 20 years off, or they disappear, or what? And then they come back when I expend it. No wonder I have to expend so much power. My merchants are all giving the job up because, they're not able to make money or something. I don't know. Austria is very close to this position where they're going to go to war with Poland. I have a claim on Poland? I hope so. Yeah, over Bohemia. Good. I have 4 admin cubes, 3 of which maybe I want to use. Increasing stability would cost me 4 of them. Converting an area would cost me 2 of them. I want to trade because I can push this into there, but I also don't have a huge quantity of cash. I would like to delay things. What the fuck did the Poles do? They went first. What the fuck did the Poles do? They didn't build their army, right? They had that built. They did a reorg. Presumably because they needed military cubes or something. Because now they have some. That's what I'm assuming. Okay. I kind of would like to delay so that the Poles can't build an army right away. They don't have much of an army on my front, but I'd also like to make them spend one of their military cubes. They don't have very many high. And stuff like that. So holding off makes sense. Of course, holding off means not getting as far in the war. If I build my army, that's telegraphing my move. I don't know how much the Poles can do about it. If I don't build my army and do an administrative action, what can I get done? I can blow everything to get a stability. Central authority. Cheaper stability gain. Let's do it. Yeah. Hey, that's not bad. We're not losing points off of it. That wraps us around. Whatever excitement I had, these hopes of being able to burn through the turns kind of quickly, they're gone when I feel like I have to dig in so much, when I think too much. Those turns where I'm able to run quickly are when I'm not when I'm letting the game not bother me too much and I'm just playing it and I'm just, trying to do the optimizations and then look and see, hey, what comes out of that. But I'm feeling like I'm getting to the end where I have to make my decision. Is this a game that I can keep fighting, to make something out of that will work for me? It's not, that doesn't mean it's a bad game or anything, although the places where it fails, I think, are salient to more than just me, right? But if I could fix the things that I perceive as failures, then or if I could see a path forward to do so, like I did with some of the early thoughts that bothered me, like, hey, could I randomize the event decks a little bit more? Could I add a couple more players? Those things felt like they were within reach. And I feel like if I look at the old EU, that there were things I could tinker with, adding players, rebalancing the victory point system, clarifying even the Risto events, all kind of stuff like that, that I could do, that eventually the game would fall together. With this, I feel less that like I'm looking at, shit, that's really not a fair event, or that needs to be tweaked a little bit. Although there are some things like that. When I look at like the religion, the spread of religion and that being limited countermix, I mean, I couldn't even tolerate that once I realized what it was. Same thing with some of the other stuff. And I actually feel like I could expand some of that, the claims, etc. So there's a fair amount of stuff that I feel like I could tinker around with, see how it works, see what's wrong with it, and visit that kind of thing. And that's the kind of stuff that makes me excited about actually revisiting a game. If a game is really, solid, it usually kind of bores me because there's not much to pick apart and figure out about it. But when I look at the core mechanism, I can't think of, and mainly it's because the game goes nowhere to really make me understand what it even means. And that core mechanism is the combination of this sort of rounds of cards being played, everything being integrated, the passing and all that, and the cube manipulation usage. Those two things are the core of the game, and I just don't feel like they actually work. They work to provide you with an enjoyable competitive experience, but they don't work in terms of representing anything in the reality very well. Anyway. Question is, do I go to the computer and play some Raid, or do I do something and read, because I'm addicted to reading. Again, what I don't do is like go for a walk or go out there and try to get rid of some of those. Mowing my lawn is done with a weed whacker, so, a weed whacker and a hedge trimmer that I use on the ground level. The Poles begin their slow march up into here, fight a battle. That cost them a cube, but they won the battle, they get it back. However, we took some fairly heavy losses here. Wow, we have a lot of cav. That's a hell of a lot of cav. What the fuck, man? I do have a couple of cav dice, but that seems weird to me. I don't know. I don't know how that happened, but we'll presume it's correct. Much about Turkey since I was planning on the subjugation. I managed to get that, got my victory points for it. And now what? Well, good question. I don't have a whole shitload of cubes around. I'm out of events. My cards, the cards I draw don't help at all. Increased stability, I could do that. I'm in a kind of weird position. Yeah, this is a problem. But here and here, there are troops, but no unrest. So I'm not going to lose anything there. However, I might want to activate my army and fight. Because it's possible I could lose things there, right? There's unrest, die roll. Well, there's religious unrest, which doesn't affect me. There's stability unrest. I won't put it there. But who knows? You know, something terrible could happen. On the other hand, the Poles are in a lot of trouble. Austria is not really making any noise. So I don't think the Poles are going to attack. The question is kind of what I want to do. So, development card useless. There is actually one card, well, two cards that are of some possible use here. I've got a Man of the Church. Obviously, I can't get myself a card draw out of that. But I could convert the religion of an area. And that could be very valuable. There are Muslim areas down here that are very problematic, have a lot of stuff in them. That's appealing. This is also a 1-point cost for the stability. So I think I'm going to play these out, keep my military. I can use them as reactions for bad things, although I can cure this unrest. So we'll do the Man of the Church first. And oh no, we're going to need more revolutionary markers. All right, we put it in the important Egypt area. It's important for the Napoleonic Wars. It's got a lot of stuff near it. Seems like a good choice. France. France is getting ready for their war. Now, I have 2 cubes that I probably want to move. That leaves me a diplomatic cube. I don't know what the fuck I'll use that for. I could do some spy stuff. Sabotage reputation. Now these all cost 2. That's not going to help. I don't know what I can do with one. I could place some cubes. Overall, I think one of these is going to be wasted. Not much help there. Harbor refugees could give me colonists, which doesn't help me. If I had a naval tradition, I could go exploring with that one. Who knows? All right. So I had decided to go for broke, built my big army, and we're going to march in here. We're not declaring war yet, and fight against those 2 rebels. Actually pay a military cube to get a single cannon die. I don't know if this is worth it. It seems kind of like not a great purchase, but here's the thing. When I fight the Dutch, I'm going to need everything I can get. They may have a leader of their own. I have Tercios and that's it. Yep, Tercios still works. I mean, whatever. Okay, Tercios kicks ass. I do 5 for whatever that's worth. Doesn't really matter. The question, of course, is, do I take, how much damage do I take? I take 1. I get a cube back, which is of vital importance. Of note, we've replaced all the bogus military counters, Navy pirate ships that I had out on land, mercenaries that could not be there, stuff like that. We'll not get to fight. They march through here to pick up a unit that is my gunman, and will be set up to siege next turn. Turn after that, we're going to do a naval maneuver to get us, I don't know, do we really want to help here? That was my plan, but I'm actually not in risk here because I've got the right religion. So it would just be the Portuguese who abandoned things. So I'm more likely to actually quell some unrest as well. English take on some additional debt. I hope I played my cube from here. Honestly, I don't think I have. To build a fair-sized little force. This is 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, so it's going to take me 3 ships to get this across, but I'll easily have that once I do the naval maneuver to there. This is going to be expensive in terms of cubes. It really is, because I have to do the naval maneuver there, which I can't do as a declaration of war. And against the Dutch, let's see, what would we be facing? We would be facing, looks like 1, 2, probably 4. Yeah, 3, 4, 5. Oh, geez. Looks like 5 ships. So I really do need to position the English Navy there in large numbers to fight. I can't use my king as an admiral, much as I'd love to. So, we'll move on. But like the French, I'm far enough behind. I want to go for this, In fact, we're both playing it out there. It's kind of interesting because I think that the French are going to be starting the war first, and that puts everything into a weird position. Now, if the French come in here, well, the French are already here. When they declare war, they'll be facing the entirety of the Dutch army. The same thing, because France and England are not allied, will happen to the English. They may want to spend a cube to become allied so that they can actually work together. It's too late now, but I think they're beginning to consider that possibility. It works out nicely because the French, the English only have 1 cube, the French have 2. But they would have to be at war together. The English continental possessions works in the Netherlands as well. The French one, I believe, does not. They're low countries. Okay, we got to be careful here. This is how we bump counters. I've got things a little tight. No, the French one does as well. So it might actually make sense for us to join together in a war against the NPR. So the fact that the French will have destroyed the Dutch army in Belgium, essentially in Flanders, doesn't help the English. But it would be possible, I guess. No, I have to make my landing here. I can't make it here because I only have 2 ships in each of these. I'd have to leave an army behind. Well, that might work out well as well. The Austrians are kind of iffy here. What they'd really like is a forced march or something like that. Although it would cost me another, well, no, it would cost me a cube that would be the same as my movement cube. But the thing is, I can't move through Turkish territory. And I'm 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 away everywhere with this army. That army has 2 artillery in it. I don't have a hell of a lot of money. moving the army, building an army, either of those is going to give an alert to the Poles, which is definitely a problem. I think we're going to build the army because that's a more complicated calculation thing. I don't know where I want that army to be. So I built a rather large army with a cav in it over here. Now, this general has a cav. This general has 2 extra white dice on him. I think, well, the king. I think I'd rather use the king, but that means if I consolidate these forces, well, I could conceivably leave like an infantry or something under this commander, but I don't want to do that. I don't have a replacement commander. This guy will basically be fired, gone, sacked. It's not, you know, again, think about the old EU or the computer game. Well, I'm not so sure with the computer game, to tell you the truth, but I think you had specific generals and you put them in charge of force, and you still had those generals. You could pull them out according to any rules that governed things in the computer game. However, in the original board game, you would generally have one commander in charge of each force, but at least by my interpretation of the rules, you could hide commanders underneath another commander. This is of importance because that had a very strict command sequencing. I've seen some other games that have similar, but nothing to the same degree. So your largest force had to be in command of your highest ranking leader. If your king was on the field, he would have to be in command of your largest force. Now, largest could be defined various different ways in that game, but basically what it meant was, yeah, you wouldn't have to put your king in the battlefield, generally. I think the only kings who were allowed on the battlefield were military. No, I believe you were allowed to bring your king in. Yeah, if you had a good military rating for a king, you could roll up a pretty good king. Strangely enough, the way the game actually works, like Prussia under Frederick the Great, I think could have like also had an additional king who would outrank him. Obviously, you know, those are the kind of things where you're like, no, that doesn't work, and you fix it. But yeah, so if you had a named king counter, he had to actually be in command. You couldn't like leave Frederick the Great off the battlefield any more than you could leave the Duke of Wellington off the battlefield. These leaders would have to be in command. And basically your highest ranked commander, no matter how shitty he is, has to command your biggest army. There were different ways to define biggest. But anyway, if I had somebody like this, the king could command with him in a combined force. This guy doesn't serve any purpose. He would possibly take casualties. But the important thing is the existence of the king with this sub-commander in his stack would mean that sub-commander would no longer have to count to command an army. There may have been, it may have been more complex than that. Like, it may have been that you would have to have, like, if he was my second ranked guy, he would have to be in a different place. None of this matters and has any effect on this game. But there was this whole complex command structure in the original game, and there's nothing like that here. I suspect there was something similar to that, at least in the early versions of the computer game, because it really did try to translate what was happening. Do I want that extra cannon? Not enough. Okay, I'm looking at the French who have a cannon over there that I really don't need. Oh, here's something else. You're very unlikely to have to go into debt on the last turn of the game because there's nothing that prevents you from demobilizing that I'm aware of. Which means, you know, that artillery that's over here, there's absolutely no reason that I would keep that on the board. So I'm not going to have to pay the buck, or I think it's $1 per unit, to keep it in the field, for whatever that matters. Anyway, we've made our way around again. I think we are about halfway through, so I guess it's time to post this one, and we'll do that.